Okay, this is chapter 6. These are your terms. I'm not going to go over them because they're bold in your book. Where does Congress get its express enumerated powers? Look at bottom of page 157. Okay, so it is Article 1, Section 8, clauses of 1 through 18. These express powers of Congress are sometimes called the enumerated powers. Okay, so it's right there at the bottom, first column of 157. And then it says, which clause of the Constitution gives Congress its implied clause or implied powers? So that was the, I believe, because this is kind of a confusing section, elastic clause, which you can read. Whoa, pause. You can read about that in the next column. Um, it says implied powers have allowed Congress to expand its role to meet the nation's needs. The necessary and proper clause has often been called the elastic clause. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Compare and contrast loose liberal construction and strict construction of the Constitution. And that he said to look on page 157 and 158. So I'm going to read the bottom of 157. Because of the far-reaching implications of the expanding power of Congress, the Supreme Court has often had to resolve conflicts over what is necessary and proper legislation. The first major conflict was between supporters of strict construction or interpretation of the Constitution and those who believed in a loose construction. So, and then it talks about the bank, about how the strict constructionists said Congress had no right to charter the bank. So it doesn't really get into a lot. So in my mind, is the loose constructionists. Okay, so I'm just going to put that in. Interpreted the Constitution loosely, and the strict Constitution interpreted it strictly. It doesn't really talk about it that much, like the details about it. Maybe you can find it and then and look at it. Okay. Remember to put these in complete sentences. Okay, which group favored the creation of a national bank? Okay, so it does say that. Okay, it says the strict constructionists said Congress had no right to charter the bank. So, in that same section, we're looking at that. Loose constructionists, okay? Which House of Congress can start revenue bills? Okay, so it says we're on the second column at the bottom of page 158, last paragraph. Article 1, Section 7 says all bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives revenue bills. Okay? So that would be the House of Representatives. Okay. Okay. What are the legislative powers of Congress? So this was a lecture presentation in class. So you'll have to go back to your notes. It says, what are the non-legislative powers of Congress? And this was also a lecture presentation in class. So let's see if there's anything in the book on it. I see on the same page, 158, in the middle of the page, it says legislative powers. It says Congress has both legislative and non-legislative powers. Non-legislative powers include the power to confirm or deny presidential appointments, which is the power of the Senate. Congress has expanded the domain of its legislative powers, the power to pass laws as the nation has grown. the most significant expansion of the congressional legislative power in its own. So its own control of the economy, taxing, spending, and regulations. So if we look at non-legislative powers, we're talking about to confirm or deny presidential appointments, and that's the power of the Senate. Then the Congress with legislative powers, power to pass laws as the nation has grown, and then its control of the economy, taxing, spending, and regulating commerce. So that would be, I'm going to put for both of these, page 158 under legislative powers. And then also you can look at your notes for class, okay? So I'll just put that on both of these. Okay, so let's look at 6.2, investigation and oversight. These are your terms. What is legislative oversight? Give an example. Let me get to the right section here. Okay. So it says, if you on 169, you can see it says legislative oversight at the bottom of the page in the first column. So it's most congressional investigations are related to another power that Congress has developed over the years, the power of legislative oversight. And then it says, give an example. As the word suggests, oversight is the power to review executive branch activities on an ongoing basis. So you would write, for example, oversight is the power to review executive branch activities on an ongoing basis. And that's at the top of the column of 169, second column, okay? All right, so let's look at, and underneath that, if you want to write this too, under it says oversight and checks and balances. It says legislation oversight. Is it a good example of how checks and balances work? Okay. Let me go back. I'll put the page number there for you. 169. So that's under legislative oversight. Congress and the President. Is that it for 6.2? Wow, that was short. Okay, so we have 6.3. Okay, so describe the cooperation and conflict between the President and Congress. So under cooperation and conflict on page 172, okay? Okay, so it says cooperation and conflict. Okay, so that's where we're at. Usually the best relations exist between the two branches when the president makes few demands. Those who propose major new programs will almost surely come into conflict with the legislative branch for any number of reasons. Recent presidents have frequently found it hard to work with Congress. Okay, so if a president wants to come up with new programs, there's going to be conflict with the legislative branch. They get along better when they don't ask for that much. Okay, so that's right under there. Describe Congress's role in establishing the national budget. Okay, so under controlling budget power, I'll put that there. Controlling budget power. It says, over the years, presidents have assumed more responsibility for planning the national budget, the yearly financial plan for the national government. Because of this, by the early 1970s, Congress has slipped into the role of merely reacting to budget proposals. So, what you're answering is, Congress has slipped into the role of merely reacting to budget proposals. So they don't have as much say or interest in it as much as they did before. It's more the president has kind of taken over the national budget. Okay, so that's the first paragraph under controlling budget power. Okay, so that was a really short study guide. The first part was, it was kind of tricky with a few of these questions, especially with C there. So maybe you guys have a better answer for that. Okay, I'll go ahead and post this. Talk to you guys later. Bye.